The NHL has a massive problem on its hands, and it's a problem that they're not going to do anything about. If you've consistently watched hockey over the past 10 years, you've definitely seen how bad the different goals that get waved off are over the course of a season. You'll have a game early in the week where there's goaltender interference, and you might not agree with the call, but you can at least say, okay, going forward this will be the standard. And then the exact same thing happens later in the week, and then they determine that it is a goal. Right now, the way that the rules are written, there's no consistency to the way that they wave off goals or can be challenged after a goal is scored, and it's completely stupid. Even in these playoffs alone, in the first round especially, we saw 2 different goaltender interference calls get allowed and disallowed in the same week, and that was a big thing that people were debating online and how inconsistent it really is. Now, we as big hockey fans already just know it's inconsistent and annoying, but imagine how confusing it is to try and get into the sport and grow the game whenever you see something like this happens. Imagine you're taking your friend to a hockey game for their first ever NHL game. A goal gets scored and the referee skates over to the bench and the coach challenges it. They announce it to the arena and then they go over to the video and review the footage for 10 minutes. That friend that you brought to the hockey game is going to be completely confused and have no idea what's going on. Then say the referee gets off of the iPad and goes and makes the call and says that the goal is allowed. And then later in the game, another goaltender interference situation happens. Same thing happens, they go to the iPad and review it. But this time, it's a wishy-washy call and the goal comes off the board. That first-time NHL viewer is going to be so lost on what the goaltender interference rules are. Even as a long-term hockey fan like myself, I'm also very confused of what the goaltender interference calls are, what the precedency for them are. The main issue with these calls is that there is no precedent for them. They're all judgment calls. There's no official rulebook, no official words in the rulebook at all that give a step-by-step detail on how to determine if something's goaltender interference. There'll be times when you're watching a game and you'll be like, that's the most egregious thing, good thing they're challenging it, and then the goal stays. And then there'll be another thing a week later and you'll see it and be like, that's not even goaltender interference, and they end up taking the goal off the board. The NHL needs to get its stuff together, and they need to put up a formal rulebook on how to overturn goals and what needs to happen for goals to be overturned. One of the issues with overturning goals is that there's more things to challenge for than just goaltender interference. You have offside calls, missed hand pass, missed stoppage, and even some of those can get wishy-washy. Some of the worst of it is when you have an offside call and someone was offside by about half a second, which has absolutely no effect on the play, but yet the entire goal has to come back and they have to play whatever seconds that happen leading up to the goal. Say a team takes a puck into a zone and has a full minute and a half of zone time possession. Say right at the end of their possession the team scores a goal, but because they were offsides a minute and a half earlier, the goal comes off and they have to put that time back on the clock and replay everything. This is an issue, especially because that guy being half a second offside has absolutely no effect on the play. Even worse than that, the other team had time to reset and had time to get the puck out of the zone, but they couldn't. We see this happen every season, and I'm surprised more stink isn't being kicked up about it. The thing that surprises me most about this is that there's hundreds of gambling companies that allow you to bet on the NHL for hundreds of millions of dollars every year. But whenever these goals get overturned or stay on the board, they end up losing money and then ends up hurting the business. You would think these gambling companies would be trying to push the NHL to have a formal rule set for overturning goals and what needs to happen for a goal to come off the board. But the issue with it is that at the top of the league, you have the dinosaurs that are still in control. If you go back 20 years, the NBA, NHL, and some of the other smaller leagues, not including the NFL because they've been big for a while, but if you go back to the other sport leagues, the NHL was right in line with them for a bit. Gary Bettman took over, introduced a hard salary cap like the owners wanted, and now he's really holding the league back. He always promotes all the time about how he gets such high revenues for the league and how good the growth is. But if you go anywhere on Twitter, anywhere online at all, you can look up how far behind the NHL is compared to some of those other leagues. It's getting to the point now where the NHL is being caught up to by MLS and other smaller sport leagues that had no business being anywhere close to where the NHL is. The NHL is losing its market share in the United States, and they need to step up big time and get their act together. This idea that there's not formal rules in place also hurts when it comes to the Department of Player Safety. At the time that I'm recording this, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final in 2024 between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers just took place. In Game 2 alone, we saw Aaron Ekblad put Evan Bouchard in a headlock, got absolutely no fine, no suspension, or anything. In that game, we also had Warren Foegele put a knee-on-knee hit on Eetu Luosterainen. Absolutely nothing came out of that. In that game, Leon Draisaitl also jumped, put his hands up, and hit Alexander Barkov right in the head. But yet, the only thing that got fined or suspended from that game was Sam Carrick spearing one of the Florida Panthers in the nuts with a stick. And yes, I know it's the playoffs, but the thing about it is you can't have people running amok like that, especially knee-on-knee hits where that can utterly destroy players' careers. That, and where you have people jumping into the heads of other players and potentially ending their careers. We've seen that time and time again. Thank God it didn't happen to Barkov here. It wasn't that bad of a hit, especially compared to those we've seen this season already. Players' lives and livelihoods are nothing to play around with, and yet that's something that the NHL Department of Player Safety keeps doing. George Parros runs the Department of Player Safety, and for those of you who don't know, he was a former goon in his time in the NHL. Now, I don't want to speculate anything, but if you look at his calls, he's been a little relaxed on stuff that he absolutely shouldn't be. You have players in the league like Jacob Trouba that repeatedly elbow people in the head and get absolutely nothing happen to them. Before you come at me and say, I already know he was fined once and he got a game suspension earlier in this season because of it, but he's done them a ton. Even in this playoffs, we saw him time and time again stick his arm out and hit people in the head, and yet next to nothing's been done to him about it, and stuff like that needs to stop. CTE and other traumatic head injuries are nothing to play around with and can affect a player's lives for as long as they live. And that's one thing that the NHL also needs to get up to speed with. Gary Bettman still refuses to admit that there's a connection between repeated head contact and CTE, and says that the NHL, there's no proof that anyone playing in the NHL has it, or that playing in the NHL can cause it to happen. The NHL needs a big overhaul in its executive leadership. Obviously, I know that's not going to happen anytime soon, but that would be my dream for it to happen. The league needs to modernize and get with the times. Time and time again, they sit and hold themselves back and get absolutely nowhere because of it. Players aren't happy, agents aren't happy, fans aren't happy. Everyone's unhappy with the current way that stuff goes in the NHL, and stuff needs to change now. Without change of the current route that the NHL is on, the NHL is going to continue to fall behind other leagues more and more. The NBA salary cap's already in the mid-hundreds of millions of dollars, and the NHL is just barely caressing $90 million now. You can't even use the excuse of a global pandemic because the NBA also went through it and found a way to keep pushing and driving in revenue and bringing the revenue up and up more and more. But yet with Gary Bettman at the helm, the NHL is going to keep being held back more and more until eventually they fall behind for good. I love this sport. I love this league. I want it to succeed so bad, and it is succeeding, but it needs help. I really hope the players in the next CBA get together and really push for something formal like this. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that get affected most by this. Sure, we're fans, sure we love the game, but we're not the ones playing in it. If the ones playing in it kick up enough stink and everything else that they can do for it, then the issue will get changed and addressed. But until they do that, I don't see it happening. But I want to know your thoughts with this. I know I'm not the only one aggravated with this, and it's something that persists in a lot of different people's minds. Make a comment below. Tell me how you're feeling about this. I'll respond to everyone that comments. If you like listening to my rambling, go ahead and subscribe for me. It really helps me out, and I'll keep producing videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.